All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Hinamatsuri,
episode 10.
We're getting close to the end, Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be sad to see the show go.
Yeah. This show definitely deserves a season 2.
Yep.
Definitely deserves a season 2. And I think it's a show that'll probably get it at some point. It
Yeah.
has so much charm to it. It has so much good stuff to it. It has an endless story it could tell.
Right.
In terms of that, it doesn't really tell a single story.
Yep.
So, lots of good stuff there. We were introduced to a new character.
Yes,
last
Mao.
episode.
And the last episode was quite the wacky one. A bit of a deviation from the usual, except, of course, with the fact that Hina is always causing trouble.
Right.
But yeah, so we got introduced to her. There was a bit of a time skip because it took Mao a long time to figure out that in the same way that she could telekinetically create a house, she could also telekinetically create a raft.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And now we've been introduced to the first character we've been introduced to.
Right.
If that makes sense.
By episode 10.
Yes.
Yeah. And Hina got Nita promoted again within the organization.
Indeed,
so now
indeed.
he is second in command. He
Yeah,
almost got thrown into the river, but he is now second in command.
And she gave him her little surprise party.
Bah.
That was amazing. So next episode, y'all. Without further ado, let's get into it.
So this is going to be where the parents find out. Yeah. Now, how will Hitomi explain this? She's going to be like, I told you to be honest with me. Yeah. No, I'll prove it to you. Let me make you a Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she did! See?
Oh, no.
See?
Oh, no.
I told you, that's the way to do it, but no. Nita's like, calm down. Yeah. Why was I in love with her again? Oh my god.
Man. Okay.
This place is expensive.
This is
right?
way outside of her budget.
Yeah. Hey, the OP, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the hell? What's the job? What? Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
She doesn't know how to say no. She's never known how to say no.
Yeah.
She's probably working like 3 jobs now.
3? She's got like 6 jobs.
Yeah.
She's got like too many jobs. Oh! Yeah!
Well, ever since Hina left... Yeah. Hina broke up the band.
Stage of magic. Wonder what inspired them.
Yeah.
What the heck? And
no.
Now everyone.
Oh no.
Oh my
Plus,
god.
she looks like she's like 12. Yeah.
Oh my god, Hitomi's amazing and you all are trash. Like, she's just trying to pay for the stupid expensive apartment then.
Yeah, like she would have to work, what, 100 hours a month just at the bar in order to pay for it?
Yeah. Yeah, now there's both of them sleeping. Yes. Oh.
Right, because she's the star pupil.
Right. Too much gaming. Yeah, that sounds like your problem.
っちは仕事で疲れてるのに。これコピーしといてって言ったでしょ。はい、そんなこと言ってないし。かわいそう。
Wow.
コピーです。最近有名になったお菓子のお菓子じゃない。この前たまたまお店の前通ったので。
She's just killing them with kindness.
Yep, yep.
シオこの前食べたかったって言ってたじゃない。よかったね。たまたまなのかしらね。ちょっと誰かあの資料、それならまとめておきました。
Did you see what she was writing?
Yeah.
Just nonsense.
Maybe that's the joke, is that it's like, you know.
ちょっと休憩しない。そこで聞くわ。海外の子はさ、ちょっといじめるとすぐいなくなるか我慢するだけ。
And you're being kind. It's like you're different.
こういうやつ。
Yeah.
あんたは頑張んなさいよ。ひとみ、一体どこにいるの？一人暮らししてるから大丈夫だよ。は？
Huh?
今仕事帰りで疲れてるから。じゃあね。ちょっとひとみ。
Oh my gosh.
もう少しだよ。
Yeah, she doesn't even get to enjoy or experience this
this-
amazing. Oh my god. Oh.
仕事行かないと。
Oh. Oh.
なんで私はちゃんと答え
Yeah, yeah.
ダメなやつなんだ。
No, no, you just need to learn to say no. It's okay.
全然落ち着いてないよ。それじゃパーティーの準備もしなきゃだし。
Uh-huh. I love how even though she's all nervous and stuff, she still does the flourish.
Yeah.
みんな寝るでしょ。もうダメだ。
You know what I just realized that Utako basically like did? Utako pressured her employee in order to get a place that she can now basically like
Have a party there.
have a party place.
Yeah.
お母さんを呼べばいいんだ。そして
あ
場をめちゃくちゃにしてくれる。解放。
Genius!
母親を呼ぶなんて。
Utsuko's gonna be outed.
やりすぎたのさ。
They're like, oh.
何この人脈。これなんて一部上場企業の。
本当、ひとみさんは素晴らしい働きぶりで、ひとみさんだったら就職活動なんてしないで、すぐに来てもらいたいですね。
Whoa!
そう、未来の幹部候補ですよ。
Yeah, she absolutely does, but- Oh no!
よろしくお願いします。
Even the mom is getting corrupted.
Right.
バーで働いていろんな業界との人脈を築き、
It's
自分を一番
that's actually a really
Actually,
good
really
idea.
smart. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
こんなの見せられたら
Oh, now her mom's
She's like,
being all
"Thank
mature
you,
here, actually.
But at the same time,
Do as you please.
わけわからないよ。
This is good. Yeah, you can tell. Nita's like, do you need a hero?
何がした
she's like, I've risen to the top, and now, what's left?
はい。
Oh, Anzu, Anzu, okay.
今まで働いてくれた分のお小遣いだよ。
Oh my god. Oh my
It's like
gosh.
$50.
Yeah, it's 5,000 yen. Oh, she's gonna hide it. Yep, yep.
She's just gonna stockpile it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh wow.
見せちゃおうかな。どうしたの？
Wow.
瞳だから
Oh no.
Oh boy.
何かな。じゃーん。ほらびっくりでしょ。何が？え、5000円なんて大金だから。
Yeah.
びっくり。あ、うわー、すごいね、あずちゃん。
Oh, so she wants to hang out with
Yeah, hang out
Hitomi.
with Hitomi, yes!
わからなくて。でも、これなら公園で木の棒を並べてボールで倒せばよくない？
Why spend money to do this?
じゃあ、あれはプレゼントだよ。プレゼント？
Oh,
大事な人に贈り物を
cool.
することだよ。
She's gonna
She's
give,
gonna give
it
it to
away.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
おじさんたちいつも肩こりが大変って言ってるから。
Oh my god, she's gonna gift them
い
something
つ
with
もお
all
じ
her
さんたち
money.
によくしてもらってるから。
Oh.
私もありがとうって気
She's
持ち
such
で
a. Oh! It's so wholesome. Yeah!
私何もしてないな。
人のお金でプレゼント買ったってハートがこもってないっしょ。
Hey!
ど
Wow.
うしたら？
Horse races?
Oh my
No.
god.
Oh no.
No,
No.
gambling.
No.
馬券は俺が代わりに買うから。
But that's not the point. Yeah.
サブさん 信じられる人なんだ。
Yeah,
Right, that's a
point.
very good point.
気持ちが本気ならきっと競馬の神様は
No.
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 Liar. Liar.
背景カタログに500円で。
一番不人気じゃん。
でも勝ったら一番儲かるんでしょ。
へえ
Oh.
じゃあマジギャンブラーだな。
Oh my god.
90倍だから。
90 to 1. Oh my god, she put everything in it too.
No,
これでプレゼント買えるね。
she only put like
Oh, she only
a
put-
small amount in
She
there.
only put like 500 yen.
Oh no.
あの馬どうなるの？
折れてるともう走れない
He's
か
gonna
ら
get shot.
楽かな。
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, Anzu's gonna try and pay for the horse with the money that she earns.
よし。残り500円。最初に当てた後、もっとお金を増やしたいって横島な気持ちが出てたの。
It's a good lesson.
それをきっと競馬の神様は見抜いてた。所詮6番人気。このままじゃ。
Oh.
ああ肩こっちまったな
この年になるときついわね。
Oh.
いたたた
力を使えば。
Yeah, she is.
足折れてるだろ。馬刺しコースか。
Yeah, and she doesn't want to because
おじさん
Right.
馬刺し。
horse sashimi. That's horrible. And she lost all her money.
Yep.
できない。どうすればいいの？
Sabu refuses to take
Wow.
responsibility for this.
だってなんだと思う？
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
これ
うん
Oh.
別にお金をかける必要はないの。
Oh.
一番大事なのはその人への感謝の気持ちなんだから。
とても嬉しいわ、アンズちゃん。
早速使ってみてもいいかい
Oh.
次はおばさんだよ。
Oh.
全部使っちゃうのもったいないわね。
I don't want to use them all
また
up.
発行されます。
Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay. Okay.
Oh. Why does Anzu always get the most like emotionally heartwarming? This where it's just like, oh, it's really wholesome. It's really wholesome, and then suddenly
Yep.
feels.
And why does no one ever listen to Hitomi?
No,
Never.
Hitomi is too smart,
Mm.
and the other reason is that she never contradicts really anyone.
Right. She doesn't stand up for herself.
She doesn't say no. That's
yeah,
the
exactly.
point.
Mm-hmm.
So because she avoids conflict in that
Mhm.
regard, it's something where she doesn't get into that opportunity where people
Right.
be like, well, wait, why should I listen to your advice? You know?
Uh-huh. But Hitomi's working to be an executive.
Hitomi is working it up because
The thing is, there's going to come a point where it's going to be like, sorry, Yuzuko, I'm beyond this.
oh yes.
Well,
Oh,
now, she
yes.
might not know to say no even to that, but she's going to be like, you know, only 1,500 yen an hour? I'm making 5 times that at, you know, at the other places.
The crazy thing is that in some ways, Hitomi doing this is probably going to be the thing that gives her like the joy of just kind of having something fun to do.
Sure.
But then it'll be all the other jobs that are the
Mhm.
like the things where she does like 1 or 2 of them and
Yeah.
makes all the money. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
that was a sweet episode. It
I
was
would-
a chaotic, like mad, like kind of
Mhm.
setup for Hitomi though. Just
And I love that, like,
kept getting worse
simple
and
things
worse.
like, I don't know, having an ID,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
never comes up.
Yep.
Right? You know, she just keeps working, right? All by recommendations, people pull strings and whatnot, and, you know,
Right.
to get her hired, and then there you go.
Yeah, and all of it, I would say, is because she doesn't want to be the one to initiate these kinds of things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like conflict.
Yeah.
In general, she
Mhm.
just doesn't like it. She doesn't like
Right.
to say no to things. And I love that we caught on to that like long before this episode. Now this is the
Mhm.
episode where it hits critical mass.
Yep.
She's aware that she can't say no. She
Right.
sees herself as a failure because of it. It's
Yeah.
like, no!
You're doing great.
You have personality flaws, yes,
Mhm.
but everyone has those. But you're
Well-
not a failure. Oh my god!
You know what's
you're
funny?
scary with how much ambition you have.
It could get to the point where she actually becomes Yakuza, or Yakuza affiliate, because if she gets high enough in these organizations and stuff, who's to say that she doesn't end up negotiating business deals with people from Nita's organization or Nita himself, right? And then he'd be like, wait, hold on a second. What's going on? Oh, man.
What's a funny
boy.
thing about this episode is there's no Hina.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
absolutely no Hina in
No
this
Hina
episode.
whatsoever.
Yep. And it was
Wow.
kind of funny because...
Just her sleeping there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Hitomi as kind of a main character in an episode is something that's been, we've had a couple times, but it was more of a bigger deal this episode because of the way they brought in the conflict with the mom being something that
we were always kind of wondering about. Like,
They
didn't have to do because Hinamatsuri, whatever,
Right.
wacky fun, and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
But the idea that it started out with that, and now we have this whole thing where Utako basically feeds into Hitomi's desire to avoid conflict and says, just run away,
Yep.
live on your own.
And pushes her into even more conflict.
Well, pushes her into an obligation and a commitment that she wasn't ready for, which, by the way,
Yeah.
Utako, that was a dick move.
That was a dick move, yeah.
That was-
well, and
that
Nita
was-
noticed at least. He was like,
He's like, why did I
That's-
fall in love? Why did I fall in
yeah.
love with this
It's
girl?
like the whole thing of like the whole joke of, of Utako just being like sort of just the fun, quirky nature of you have this middle schooler who happens to be an absolutely magical bartender, right?
Right.
So you want to keep them employed, right? And it's sort of
Yes.
like that gently sort of poking fun at the workforce of when you have that one worker that's really good and you want to like do whatever you can to keep him there, right?
Sure, for sure.
But then it's like, no. This is taking it to
Yeah.
a whole other level.
She basically created the demand in Hitomi's life for more money, which
Right.
basically feeds into the fear that a lot of people really experience in life, where it's if I lose this job, I won't be able
Yep.
to pay the bills. If I'm not able to pay the bills, then I won't have money
Right.
to
Then I
pay
could be
for
out on the
food.
street or
And
yeah,
if I
exactly.
don't have money to pay for food, then I'm out on the streets, and
Yep.
then I'm
Yep.
destitute.
And one might say almost that it's a clever commentary on the work frenzy that people can get into, especially in Japan, where it's like okay, you're working all the time, right? Maybe you do have this nice penthouse place that's great for
But is it worth
impressing
it?
people at parties or whatever, but is it worth it? Because you come
You
home,
don't get to experience it.
yeah, you're buying stuff at the pre-packaged meals at the grocery store, coming home and falling asleep before you can even get them in the fridge, and then you need to go to your next job, and your suit's all wrinkled, and you're just doing terrible, right?
Yeah, I knew some friends of mine who basically had this moment where, like, student loan debt is a crisis in the U.S.
Oh,
It's an
boy.
absolute crisis. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I had friends where basically they spent the majority of their 20s, probably some of the most fun times you can have in your life, probably the most free time you have in your life, as you are independent from your parents, but you're also probably single for a good chunk of it, or at least, for some of it. And instead of having the ability to connect with friends and stuff, she worked three jobs just to pay off student loan debt. And it was for like 5 or 6 years. And it was like these multiple moments where I would be like, hey, we're doing a thing to interact and stuff like that. And she'd be like, well, I can't go anywhere else, but if you guys come to my place, then maybe, yeah. And it was all like, oh, I mean, sure. But that's
Right.
the reality of someone's life, where it's like not something where there was any benefit they were getting, but they were paying off debt.
Right.
So the idea that it was brought up also by the coworker who Hitomi gave the snacks to, of like, do you have debt or something? Like, is there something like serious
Yeah.
you're trying to work off? Because she was trying to be understanding and basically being like,
Yep.
you're desperate for more money right now.
Right.
And I understand that that's something that people go through. So,
Right.
like, is there something you're dealing with? 'Cause
And they ended up opting for the comical, lighthearted
Yes.
route of that Hitomi just doesn't know how to say no, and all these opportunities come her way, right?
Yeah.
But while still touching on the idea of how horrible this would be to actually be stuck in that situation, especially if you don't have the hand of Midas and everything you touch doesn't necessarily turn to gold, right? Because
Which is basically Hitomi.
that's basically Hitomi, right? And it's a great shtick. It's fun.
It's an amazing shtick. It's hilarious.
But imagine being in a situation
Oh
like
my
that where you're
God.
working all those jobs, except it's not going well.
Right.
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 And your boss is being all like, hey, you know, get this, like the whole thing with the bullies at the one shop and stuff. Imagine if that didn't go well. Imagine if Hitomi wasn't able to keep up with it, because realistically you wouldn't be able to, right? You know, working that many jobs would affect it, right? You know, the quality overall would go down of your work, you know.
Even if it was a more realistic number of jobs, the main point of her having, you know, not enough time in the week for herself to be basically
stay sane,
to maintain a semblance of sanity, if you will. Like it's no joke how many people have to do that, and it's not necessarily a complicated or simple answer. I mean, sorry, it's not. There's not necessarily a simple answer, or even really really an answer at all, is what I'm trying to say to the whole situation, because everyone has a different kind of setup and situation, what have you. But the idea that when you're in this situation, regardless of why, it's a very, very taxing, strenuous thing, where when you get back to your place of safety, your place of comfort, or your place of just respite, you're just trying to recover back to baseline, you know? You can't even do that there. Like, that's crazy. Although I like the other message in here, because there's a lot of moments in Hinamatsuri where as a show they go into these deep kind of topics, and it gets kind of heavy, actually. But in this one, actually, they kept it light in another way, and that was that the fact that she is this young, ambitious, you know, rising star in the industry of all these things with the connections and all that, and the mother is all like, yes, take good care of her, these connections are once in a lifetime. It's actually that when she notices that her daughter took all this initiative, she respects the initiative,
even if it wasn't actually Hitomi's initiative.
Exactly. And yet this is something that I feel like might be the positive spin on it, is that Hitomi's whole way she kind of stumbled into all of this wasn't really her initiative. But the idea that she doesn't run from the work of all this.
She rises to the occasion.
The stress and the burden of expending all this time and energy and mental, you know, what have you, to do all this stuff is a type of conflict that she doesn't run away from. In the same way that she says yes to everything, she takes the stress and the resistance, I would say, of her environment in stride, and basically says, yep, but whatever, I'll get past it and move through it.
I feel like with the three main girls, you have kind of this trifecta of, like, basically Hina is the potato, right? and she's pretty useless and unrealistically so. But it's great, and seeing her.
Well, they're all unrealistic.
They're all unrealistic. Yes, absolutely. But in the sense of, like, you know,
but their situations are kind of realistic.
Their situations are kind of realistic, and then so Hina's that whole situation, right? And then Anzu is more of like the middle one, where it's unrealistic in how just adorable her bumbling through life and learning these lessons and things like that is, right?
It's adorable.
And then with Hitomi, it's just the opposite from Hina, where instead she's hyper competent at everything and is rising to the occasion too quickly, but then but so it's sort of like it's talking about the dangers of that, basically, when that becomes the only thing that, when your life gets absorbed by that, to balance out with Hina, where it's the, you know, lying in a grass field and just letting ants crawl into your mouth, you know.
The thing that separates the three of them is primarily their environmental stuff. The things that situate them basically dictate the person that they become. And this is maybe something that I find very interesting here, is that the show is trying to make the point, I think it does it very well, is that if all three of their situations were, you know, mixed up, the girls would change who they were. They would become different people in some ways. Now, they have stuff that is pre-text
their
that goes
personality
before this whole setup, but it would influence them slightly. And we've already seen it, I would say, with Anzu, like her whole perception regarding, you know, the comforts of living in a home, having money, all these things. She's always going to be a grateful, wholesome, you know, good person. but there are parts of her that are changing slightly to adapt
Right.
to that. And then Hitomi becoming, I would say, more acclimated to the struggles of work life and to becoming more and more responsible with managing all these resources and
Right.
schedules and things
Yeah,
that she
because
has
she was a
to handle.
responsible person before, but now it's getting that chance to shine, even if it's
Yes.
doing so. It's doing so for reasons that maybe are not the best.
Right. I mean, she participated in the gambling. Like,
Yeah,
as
eventually.
well, in the horse race.
Yep.
But there's this aspect of where all the girls, I would say, are similar in that they all are trying to do this kind of alone. Now this is the
Okay.
thing of where I think that the show is brilliant, is that there's a wonderfully diverse cast of characters. They're all wacky, quirky,
Yep.
flawed, ridiculous human beings.
Right.
They all have some nature of them that's over-exaggerated, but I would say at the base part, they're pretty human.
Right.
Like,
It's all coming from some kernel of humanity that is very understandable, relatable,
and very real.
identifiable.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then it's just hyper extremes in certain places.
Right.
But when they tug on each other, when they tug on someone else to help them, that's when the real like good stuff happens. Like in some ways, Hitomi's whole situation is because someone else kind of stepped in and,
Yes.
made this whole thing happen for her. In a couple other ways, you see situations where Hina's whole situation is this way, not just because of Nita, but because of the interactions within the whole dynamic with
Yeah.
Nita. Same thing with Anzu. In fact, Anzu's is the best example of that with the homeless
Yep.
people in the
Yep.
park and stuff. There's so many moments where we see the chain reaction of what happens when someone helps another person in this
Right.
show, that it spirals into this bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger thing. And yet all three girls are separate in their own different struggles, and they don't really cross the streams. They don't really try to
Yeah.
help each other in their own specific
Well-
ways. They don't even really ask for help.
They try to sometimes, but oftentimes it's not accepted.
Well, that's the offer. That's the
Right.
difference, though. They offer it, maybe, I would say, but they don't really ask for it.
Yeah. I gotta say, one of the things, just before I forget, because it was a very small, minor aspect of this episode, but I loved it, was Hitomi running into the band people and then being
Yes,
like, "Yeah, we're on
yes.
hiatus," but we're looking into studying up on like magic stage effects,
Stage magic.
Stage magic,
I'm like,
I wonder why.
They
Like,
saw the potential out on the street, and now they're like,
And-
guys, there's real money here.
well, and right, which is great because there isn't actually.
There
like,
isn't
like,
at all.
Not in the way that they thought, because Hina was just a psychic doing that stuff. But then also which is even better, because that means that they just not know that Hina is psychic?
Nope,
or
they have no idea.
Or they do know, but they're like, hey, maybe we can try and do something similar.
I don't
But
think
then-
they know she's psychic.
Probably not.
Nope.
But then also the idea that basically if Hitomi had heard about what Hina had done,
Yep.
right? That Hina was a part of this band and stuff and whatnot, she would have just shorted out, right? She would have been
Right.
like, what? Hina? The Hina that like is asleep in class all day? Like what? Like you're kidding me, right? But no, that
amazing.
that didn't happen. Those two like potential like connection
Stories,
lines,
yeah.
Things just went by.
Yep.
But the thing is that we notice these things. And,
Oh, yeah.
and it's so much fun.
That's the show. It's all about connections, basically. It's about the connection lines between people, their stories, and then the decisions that they make and how those decisions influence other people's
Right.
stories based on whether or not
Yep.
they're connected to them and how connected they are to them.
It's things like that make me hope more than think that at some point Hitomi is going to do business with the Yakuza.
I mean, I'm sure the source material has gone way past this first season here.
And who knows?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like the other thing is the whole bit with Anzu having the 5,000 yen, right? And it's like I have a whole $50, right?
Yeah.
And Hitomi's like, Yay!
Yeah.
And the thing is that they can keep up that charade of Anzu not realizing just how loaded Hitomi is, right? Because Hitomi's not going to be frivolous with her money, right?
Right.
Like, if anything, Anzu might like if Anzu saw her place, she'd be like, whoa, this is a big place, this must have
Yeah.
cost a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And then Hitomi would just not say how much it cost, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that we'll probably never get to a point where, you know, Anzu like sees some random like bank statement or something like that and he's like you know, but I love it.
Yeah. This actually reminds me of a story from when I was a kid and stuff. The idea of working for, you know, someone when you're really young and kind of having that like, oh, that naivete around money and not really appreciating like what you've been given in that regard. It's not really a Hitomi type situation, but when they said the thing of like, oh, you can just skip the hiring process and just come work for us. There was this shop in Eastern Washington that we would go to all the time when we would go to visit our grandma over there. And the thing is that the people that owned the place, they hired local like high school, college age kids and stuff to work there. Because I mean, it's a really simple job.
Right.
It's a really simple job.
Ice cream,
you're cleaning and you're serving people the stuff there. That's basically it. And the thing is that we knew the people that, you know, owned the place just because we went there so often. And then they knew our grandma and they were like, hey, are these kids like, you know, and, you know, there are a bunch of us and like, hey, these kids like looking for work on like summer and stuff. And I'm thinking like, I would love to stay in this area and stuff, but a job, I don't know. I've never had a job before. And I'm like 15 years old or whatever. And they're like, no, you know, you should come work here. We'll pay you. And the idea of someone like paying me for work, like I had mowed lawns and stuff as a kid.
But like regular, you know, like
I had mowed lawns for neighbors and stuff. And it's like, you make a little bit of money and it's like, okay, that's cool. But I'd immediately spend it because I had no idea what I was doing.
Whereas the consistency of an actual job...
The consistency of a paycheck where, like, every 2 weeks they give you this thing with big numbers on it. And you're like...
you've been working a lot.
Right. And it just suddenly hits you and you're like, oh my God. Yeah. I had the Anzu moment first where I was like... Ah! I'm like, sure, I'll work there. And they basically didn't, like, hire or interview. It was just like, here's an apron.
Right.
Sign this stuff here, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. You are now employed.
You are now employed.
Yeah.
I don't know how that whole thing works in the whole, like, thing there, but, hey, they covered it and what have you. So, I started working there and got the first paycheck after working. I think I was working full time too, like right out the gate. You know, you get
summer job.
You get like, you know, a couple zeros after the first paycheck there, and it's like the first number, and you're like, wait, what? And I just remember like going back to because we got to stay with our grandma while we were working there, and I was just like, I don't know what this was, and so I didn't show anyone the thing, but I had this moment of like, and now I look back on that and go, oh, right. Wow. Like you don't want to know like how stupid I was with the money back when I was 15 or 16, but it's just the idea of like when you don't really value like the hard work or the effort reward, you know, earning and all that stuff. It's just like you have these moments, and someone who's an adult, essentially, which is kind of what Hitomi represents, is kind of the maturity of that you can have in your youth, as basically an adult, to contrast all the adults in the environment. And they just kind of go, yay, you know, like treasure it while it lasts, you know.
a little bit to help embellish on that story. That like not, you know, saying it's not true or whatever, but one of the other things. So one of the other things about this place is that this was in a tourist town. So there were a lot of restaurants, right? And they were basically all run by the locals, right? And this was like a population 400 people. Like this is a tiny little town, right?
But it would get like 100,000 visitors in the summer,
right?
Like,
because it was just in the right place and everything. So so the thing is that once the locals would turn like 16, right? They would want to work at the restaurants because then they could make more money generally, right? So this place would hire people at 14.
Yeah.
That is actually legal, right?
Mhm.
And they paid well. It was a thing where like you can legally pay, 14 and 15-year-olds like 85% of the minimum wage or something
they
like
pay
that.
them more than that.
And they paid us, full straight minimum wage, right? But the idea of like 14, right? Like 14, and it's just like, oh, I'm working 40-hour weeks. I don't know what this means exactly, right? But then you do that, and maybe you pick up a couple shifts here and there because the locals really don't want to work.
Nope, they don't.
They really didn't. So like, and
they
then
were more like, okay, I don't want to.
let's go to the lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas like we were
and swim.
right. Whereas we were there just to work. Like we would
Right.
do other stuff there, but like in a tiny little town, it could get kind of boring. Like when,
Oh yeah.
like it could get really boring. Like the small town trapped fever with the locals was a very real thing. But we didn't have to deal with that because we were just there for the summer, right? And then it's just like, oh, okay, all right.
It was a Hitomi type feeling. The
Yeah.
idea of everyone else having this immature kind of look at life.
And we were.
No. But just the idea that like, we just kind of came in there and like worked hard.
Right. And the thing
Like,
is that it
you
wasn't something. It was not something that basically we put ourselves in the way of.
Right.
It was just something where our parents talked a lot with the owners of the place, and we went there all the time because it was a great place,
Mhm.
right? And the owners were super nice and everything, like best starting job bosses.
Oh yes,
like ever.
they were great people.
Great people. They're basically like second grandparents.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, oh, you want to work? It's like, oh, okay, and it just
Sure.
sort of stumbled into our laps, right?
Right.
And it ended up being this awesome, wonderful experience. But
Right.
yeah.
But I just love the idea that like that kind of situation
Mhm.
that Hitomi's in, while it is like the bar kind of situation there, it's
Yeah,
different. That kind of thing does happen.
Right.
And then it is a weird feeling when you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that
all
was-
of my peers are just like they're either Hinas where they're just like or they're the one kid who's like, oh, did you stay up too late gaming? And it's like, well,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just something where we were just there for the summer, like
Right.
that. I know that happens for people when they're still in school, right?
Yes.
Even if they're not working like as many hours during the week because they're
For
in
sure.
school and stuff.
Sure.
But like, yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To any of you out there that are around that age range or whatever, and you can get a job, hey, go for it. It can be a great experience.
It's a great experience. I
And
would
you
say.
can get a lot of money because you don't have anything to spend it on. Not really. Like,
don't
like
really,
you can
no.
find ways to spend it if you want to.
Right.
But it's
You
so
can get-
easy to save it up.
Yeah, you can get cool clothes. You can save for your car. You can do all these things or what have you. But like one of the coolest things about it is just being like, oh, I'm in an environment where most people who start in this environment are like 3 or 4 years older than me.
And one thing I will say, the whole Hand of Midas thing for Hitomi is unrealistic,
Oh yeah.
but it's based in realism.
Yes.
If like employers specifically will fight tooth and nail to have employees that are dedicated and work hard and respectful and don't slack
Yes,
off and
that
things like
part
that.
is real.
Like
that
that
part
is
is
very real. Like there would be points where like because we come from a big family, it became almost like this rite of passage thing where like we all worked at this place, as like once we turned 14, right? But
I was the oldest, so like I
right by the
started
time
at,
they
like,
asked
15.
you were 15, right?
Yeah.
But like the employers, they were because they had to deal with all these lazy locals, like they would bring in exchange students and things like that to work and stuff, and then
And
they
they
would,
worked hard.
and they worked hard, and then
Yeah.
they would also bring in us, right?
Right.
And they would like they would make sure to do kind of what they had to get us to come back. Like there was a point where
Oh, you don't need to flex on them,
No, no, no.
Jacob. I know what story
but-
you could tell here.
no, not that story.
Not that story.
No,
Okay,
but,
okay.
But there were points where they would literally let us stay in their house, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, can you come over for like, Memorial Day weekend? It gets really busy and stuff like that, and it's like, oh well, our grandma has guests at that point, so that doesn't really work. It's like just stay at our house. It's fine. Like we'll give you rides into work and everything like that. Like, and granted, these were super sweet people,
Right.
like they kind of treated us like their grandkids, but
Yeah, because we knew them for like 10 years.
yeah, exactly. Like they watched us grow up.
Right.
But
basically.
but the whole thing of like, there was also that sort of Utako thing where it's like
yes,
and they did it. They did it. They did it in the right
way.
way. But like that little bit of greed of like, yes, I have good workers. Oh my god, yes, let's keep them here. Let's keep them working.
And they wouldn't be like trying to hide it necessarily.
No,
like,
they were very open about it. Like,
oh yeah,
like the place had a nickname.
Yes, yes.
Sherry's Sweatshop.
Yep.
And they didn't mind that. They owned up to that because compared to all the other
It's horrible.
like because you know they would work the people hard, but they paid well, you know, and they treated the employees, you know, really well and everything. And but oh man, it was hilarious because and like there would come that point where like when it would be like the end of the summer, the season or whatever, or like February of like the year, right, when they're starting to being like, okay, let's get the next season situated.
Sure.
They would like call us up and be all like, hey, so you love working for us, right? Like you totally want to come over and work again, right? Like this is great. You know, it's great here. This is a bunch of fun. Think of all the fun that you had last year and all the friends you made and stuff.
Utako.
And they never did anything like, you know, forcing us into some expensive place or whatever, you know, anything like that. But but it was all over, you know, a very fun, positive experience. And so basically, while Hinamatsuri is unrealistic, and this episode was very unrealistic, the things that happen in here are still like relatable
Yeah.
and sort of like based in reality, even though it's taken up to that extreme.
Right.
So
that was a long story bit there, but the thing that's really like trying to make the point here is that there's a lot of stuff in Hinamatsuri that makes it even funnier, makes it even more enjoyable because there's parts where you're like, ha ha ha, I know
like,
what they're referencing there. And it's not a specific
I've met
reference.
those people.
Right. It's like
yeah.
they're basically referencing a type of experience or a type of part of humanity or something where you go, oh, yeah, those types of people, those types of experiences happen. They just don't always go to that level, or at least based on my experience, I haven't seen things go to that extreme before. So I think that's where the show is really smart, is that they pull from real life experiences, obviously, and then add extra bits to them. So yeah, this show's fantastic.
Yep.
It was fantastic to have them give a good focus to Hitomi, and then the Anzu stuff at the end was
bringing back Anzu into any episode
was
like that's
amazingly wholesome.
yeah.
It was wonderful, and I gotta say, one last little story thing here. The whole thing of I wrote down the 10 minutes of massage time thing there, and that's the gift that counts and what have you. There was a time where our family had like nothing. Dad had, you know, no job, no nothing. We were, you know, basically getting, you know, food handouts and stuff, and we were trying to, you know, figure out a way to make ends meet and stuff. And it was a really like hard, you know, time for the family and stuff. And one of the things that happened was that when we would have birthdays and stuff, we would have to get creative with gifts and stuff because we just couldn't afford any. Yeah. And one of the things that we would do was we would write little things basically saying, here's 30 minutes or an hour of doing this thing with me. And we basically gift our time helping Dad with like a specific thing, like with a project or whatever, or helping, you know, a brother with this specific thing, or
one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Our youngest brother. He was very, very young. Very young.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really, you know, get him presents. So what we did was we all basically pitched in on this. We took a bunch of old cardboard boxes. Yeah. And we made them into armor. Now, I mean, you know, of course, you know, right? But the thing is, armor, weapons, like, we tricked him out so that he was a full-on Gimli with, like, two big axes and, like, you know, and with, like, duct tape to cover it up so it looked, you know, it looked kind of like armor and stuff like that. And that was Like,
and we basically played a game where he would chase us with the
right,
armor
with
and stuff
within
like
the
that,
two
with
axes
the
and just
axes,
yeah.
and it was so sweet. We have pictures of it and everything, but like he was so young, he doesn't really know what was going on or understand what was going on.
He was like what, 4?
Yeah,
like,
or something like that, or maybe even 3. But just like that kind of stuff where you realize that the gift and what you're giving them is not really important, and that whole hogwash that Sabu did of having someone else help you with the gift. That's BS. That's BS. It's all about basically the appreciation you have for the person and just finding your own way to show that. It doesn't matter what the way is. It's just that you show the appreciation for the person, and because they're there to just receive that, and as long as they can just know, they understand that you appreciate them, it doesn't matter what the gift is. It's so wholesome.
And here's the thing. I will bet money, even though it's a fictional story. So, you know, it's kind of hard to prove this one way or the other. That Anzu's new parents and the fact that she said mom was absolutely adorable and made my heart melt.
Yes.
But they appreciate those massage tickets way more than they would have appreciated.
Yes.
You know, some massage device, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, ugh.
Like that's 100% true. Did you know how I know that? And this is the part that legitimately made me cry. Was the part where she's like, "Now, Mom, you can use some too." And she's like, "Oh, I don't want to use them all up so quickly." I was like, and then she's like, "It's okay. I'll just issue more." I was just like, "Oh, of course she would." That's so wholesome. That's the good stuff right there, y'all. That's amazing. Like, treasure your time with your family, with your loved ones. It's just, it's so good. So good. So, y'all, this episode made us talk for a while, but thank you all so much for watching the end of this discussion, y'all. We are the wholesome lads, the wholesome ones.
Self-proclaimed.
I'm talking about all of you watching as well at the end of this here. I'm thinking of having this be a recurring gag. Just if you make it to the end of the discussion, Caleb dubs you with a dumb nickname.
I dub thee something.
The wholesome lads, you know. But, the wholesome ones. No. Well, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us about these stories, about anime in general, talk about stories of our childhood, talk about all those kinds of things there, or just, just hang out, talk about whatever. You can also talk with Jacob about his book he just published.
Yes, my sci-fi novel Battle Lines, which has been out for a little while, but it's still available for order on Amazon. The link is in the description of all our videos, so go check it out. It's a pretty fun book.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.